Great. So first of all, how long has it been? Like since the last time we actually were in the same room? Like 30,
Oh,
40 years?
well, you were in what was it? What was the name of your band? It was I always hung out with you and DeGrasse.
It was wow. I
It was
forget.
in
I mean, it was
the
probably a cheesy name.
90s. It was the 90s, and I used to hang out with you all the time because you were always hanging out with mutual friends.
Yeah.
So
Um,
it was
yeah,
Craig
well,
Pink,
believe it or not,
Craig.
I came up with so obviously us growing up in the 80s into like, 80s acts like MTV. The first
Yeah,
band that I started was called Frame of Mind. That was again high school band.
yeah,
We
yeah,
actually had
yeah.
some decent players, and then I think what you're referring to is after I graduated, after high school, I started a band called Chasing Trouble, and
That was it. That was the one.
that was it.
Jason.
Yeah, Chasing Trouble,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure where we came up with that name, but I guess it sounded very 80s. I mean, not as
It was Craig Daniel
yeah,
Pincus, Craig Daniel Pincus. Well, Craig Daniel,
yeah.
he's known around the shore. And
Chris Covert, he's a comedian now.
is he really? I now who did he play? Was he
He
the
played
bassist?
keyboards.
And the bassist was a
Jay
guy
Car-
named Jason.
Jay Carney. He was actually like the good friends of like PJ Farley from Trickster.
Okay, I remember Trickster. And then John obviously was
Yeah,
one
yeah,
one of
yep,
the groomsmen at my wedding. So that's how I
yep.
knew because I was so close with John. So that's how we knew each other. And I
And how
um
about you now? And then ironically, and then after the failed venture, what was it? I shouldn't say failed venture. It was a lot of fun, right?
hey
But
man, it's a
after that,
band. It's supposed to be bro. It's supposed to be bro time. It's
right?
supposed to be fun.
Exactly. It was a great time. And
Yeah,
then after that, after that, I started a cover band.
you did.
I did. Yeah, I
Okay.
did. So I went to college, and so right after like we did all the original band stuff, I went to school. My parents were like, "You're going to school, Dean. You're going to school." So
Yeah.
I ended up, spent a couple of years of college, graduated, and because we lived in New Jersey, I mean, I think at that time, we most of the time when we saw bands play, they were playing in clubs, and most of them were cover bands. So
Mhm.
I'm like, what a cool way of making money and a cool way of just playing, actually. It was more about just playing, but then, of course, let's make a little bit of money on the side. And we started the cover band, and that was obviously with John and then Craig and then another guy. And we did that for about maybe a year and a half. And then I left. And I think then you and Brian kind of came in, right?
Well, yeah, I remember getting a call from John, and he had asked Brian and I if we would be willing to fill in for a couple shows. We knew Craig from John. I mean, we were all friends. We knew because we used to all
Sure.
hang out. We used to go to the Inkwell. I mean, we used to all hang out at the same places. I'm sorry, I have
Sure.
a 100 pound dog pushing me this way. So if I look like I'm
Yeah. And
possessed,
I'm going to turn, hold on. I'm going to turn something off right over here. I got something
sure,
running
sure.
that is
Shelby,
annoying.
come on, go.
Okay. So
Yeah.
go on.
He asked. He said, "Would you be willing to play bass?" I was like, "Yeah, I play bass. I have a bass. I mean, I'm a guitar player by from originally a guitar player.
Right.
So I learned how to play bass. I sing a little bit. Well, I didn't learn how to play. I mean, kind of. It's pretty simple songs. Most of these songs. And then Brian is sort of could play anything. It didn't matter keys, guitar, drums, whatever. So they brought him in on drums. He had asked if we would fill in on bass and drums, and then I had a friend that I grew up with, Brian Douglas. I grew up with him in Hightstown. He came in and started playing keys. So that was, I can't remember, I guess it was just Craig Daniel Band or Original House Party, or it was a couple different names. And we just played, it was just covers, no originals whatsoever. And that was all around the same time we were all teaching guitar. I was teaching guitar and bass and a little bit of piano and vocals, and Brian was teaching and John was teaching. We were all teaching for Joey Novolo, who's like a local legend drummer. He was like a legendary drummer in the area. I think it was called Big Beats Music Studio in Neptune, all around the same time. So I was doing both for a little bit until the cover band thing went a little better. And then I was like, oh, cool. I only have to work like 3 or 4 nights a week, Thursday through Sunday. And I did that. Uh, and then Brian and I, during the breaks, would talk about the songs and be like, yeah, like it's like really simple. It's like it's kind of stupid, some of these songs. And he said, well, if you want to try to write some of this type of shit, we should get together. So we would get together before and after the shows and just kind of like dabble in some of the pop ideas we had. But we've all were like dabbling on each other's music for years. Brian or me by myself, John DeGrazio by himself had
Right.
a massive studio. You know, but for some reason Brian and I gravitated a little bit more to pop. And that's where that relationship began, of us writing together, from that, probably from playing covers in that in Craig's band.
Got it. So from
Yeah.
there, yeah. So I was going to say, so when you're in the cover band, because right, I mean, I think one thing about going in the cover band, you play like these popular hits, you
And
know,
you see the reaction, absolutely. Yeah.
right. And I grew up, you know, like you grew up, we grew up listening to more, probably less. Well, I can't speak to everything you listen to, but hard rock bands, and you get used to listening to one genre, you go and you play cover bands,
Yeah.
and you subconsciously hear all this kind of stuff, like, you know, the chords, the progression, you know.
Yeah.
So I say like a good way to start songwriting and just to learn just music is play a bunch of covers.
You'll it'll simplify it for you. Because if you're listening to if you want to be Segovia, a cover band isn't for you. Writing songs, pop songs isn't for you. If you want to play music like Yngwie Malmsteen, that's not for you. That's what I grew up listening to. That's what
Right.
I grew up trying to be until I got into, then I started teaching guitar, then got into the cover band. So it was a whole 180 for me. I wanted to be Steve Vai at one point.
Yeah.
I wanted to do instrumental guitar music and shred. And I totally went out the window when I realized, yeah, nobody's going to purchase this music from me. I don't think there's a lot. And it became, I actually started to gravitate towards pop. I liked pop. I liked reggae. I liked everything. Playing in the cover band opened my mind a little bit to a lot of other styles of music. I was a little closed-minded. I grew up listening to very similar music as you. All the hard rock, Skid Row, Bon Jovi, everything that was hot
Right.
in the 80s and the 90s, Warrant. And but in the 80s, I was more open-minded. I listened to Run DMC and the Beastie Boys. And I noticed as I got older, I got a little more closed-minded, and I kind of gravitated towards the metalheads because those were my people. In high school, I listened to more Metallica, but I didn't mind the hair metal because that's what all of us were. Well,
Right.
with the exception of the hair for me. And I gravitated towards all that. But in a sense, those are pop songs. Those are just pop songs anyway, right? They were all huge hits. Cinderella and all these groups, they had huge hits, and they were pop. So that's what was popular at the time. And but as the band, I think things like the Backstreet Boys started to bubble under right around the time we were in the cover band. We started to hear
Hey,
Quit
Josh,
Playing
hold on. I'm
Games.
just turning this thing off again. I don't know
Yeah,
why this is going on still. There we go. Now we got it
sure.
on. So yeah, so the Backstreet Boys were bubbling at the time, you were saying.
Right. Brian and I started writing pop songs. I was like, I think we can write this kind of stuff. So we just started kind of experimenting with some guyish pop. And he's like, well, I don't sing. He goes, could you want to try it? It's like I didn't really sing much at the time, just backgrounds. So I ended up trying to learn how to sing, and I over time I just became a singer, and I ended up singing all of our demos over time. I think we hired someone in the beginning, but he was too soulful. He was too much of a singer for that kind of music. You got to be kind of simple. It's got to be simple and sing alongy. No one's going to sing along with Pia Toscano. You can't keep up with her. It's like singing along with Celine Dion. You can't. It's got to be like, for the kind of stuff we were writing, it's got to be real simple. So we were just writing and demoing and writing and demoing. And I know on the side, Brian was doing some stuff with some DJs from Staten Island, doing some remixes and playing the actual musical parts, because those guys just knew how to do the let's just call it the part. They could do and then Brian would come in and actually add the actual music and some of the programming. So he became friends with a lot of those cats over there in Staten Island, big DJs. And that was sort of how we got in. We got in with some of those DJs, mainly friends of Brian's, and then we met like some of the more famous DJs like DJ Scribble and Anthony Acid and some of these other guys, and they introduced us to this other producer who was the first producer we met, who was, just to make long story short, that was this guy Rashad Smith, who they call Tumble and Dice. He was a very big producer out of Staten Island who did like doing it for LL, and he did Woo Ha for Busta, and he did One More Chance for Biggie. Big hits, rap artist for rap artists, and he was signed as a hitman to Puffy. So he was friends, and he would hang around the area, and he was friends with some of the DJs Brian's was friends with. So, you know, Scribble had said you should listen to some of the stuff these guys are doing, and I think Brian played him some of the stuff. It was really poppy, and he was like, "Yo, it's dope though, but I need guys who can play on some of my stuff." So we ended up working with him a little bit. I would say for a year, at least a year, maybe a little longer. We were doing stuff and helping him produce some. Like LL had a band signed to Rock the Bells, which was LL's label. It was like a boy band, but it was more of an R&B boy band. So we did some songs for them. We did some stuff that ended up being cut by Carl Thomas, who was signed to Bad Boy at the time in the late 90s. And a couple of things got cut by, one song got cut by 50 Cent, Destiny's Child. Before 50 was big, he was signed to Columbia through the Trackmasters. So one of the tracks we did with Rashad. So we were just doing tracks. We were just like track guys. So that's sort of where it all just sort of, I'm making it as, you know, quick as you get there. And then we went in one day, we went in on some meetings with Rashad. He brought us with him. And we met with an A&R guy at Jive Records, this guy, Jeff Fenster, who was like a legendary A&R guy. He had signed Britney and Backstreet, or co-signed, you know, along with some of the other guys that are credited with signing her. And he was listening to some tracks for projects he had going on there at Jive. So Rashad said, let's go play some stuff for Jeff, my friend Jeff. So first time we met him, and he goes, oh, this pop stuff I'm hearing. He goes, I know that's not him. I know what he does. He does like the hard, you know, the hard hip hop. Who's doing all this pop stuff that you guys have on this tape? And we were like, that's us. That's what we do. And he was like, shit, who's you publishing with? And we were like, what's publishing? We didn't know what that was. You know, like we were like, okay, we have an idea, but we're like, well, we're not signed anywhere. We just work with him. There's no contracts. And that's what was so cool, I think, about Rashad. He really could have probably taken advantage of us, and he didn't. He was just cool. He liked what we did, and we worked together, and we were really like friendly. We hung out. It was great. It was a great time. So he said, you should really meet with the publishing company part of Jive downstairs. It's called Zamba. So about a week later, we go in and we meet with Steve Lunt, who became, you know, an A&R guy later, but at that time he was in publishing. And we met with another guy named Eric Beal. So those were the two guys who were like the pop publishers at Jive Records, Zamba, which was part of, Zamba was the umbrella, Jive, Verity, all these other companies were under it. So we met with Steve, we met with Eric, and they were like, you guys are writing like pop songs. Nobody's doing that right now. Nobody does that here in New York. Everybody's hard. They're coming in with this hard shit. You know, we wanted to do that too, but we were writing pop. So they said, hey, listen, we'd love to sign you guys here. They didn't have a lot of money for us. It wasn't like Sony. It was an independent label, and they were taking a huge chance on us because we didn't really come in there with any cuts. We came in there with a Carl Thomas cut, wasn't even released. And we came in there with like a 50 cent. They're like, what's a 50 cent? They, you know, who knew what would happen later? It wasn't on one of 50's bigger things. It was on Power of the Dollar, which was his first LP. It wasn't really anything big. It was like, he was really underground battle rapper kind of thing. So they signed us there, and then they would just start giving us the, you know, back in those days, Dean, they would give you like a piece of paper. They'd give you like a piece, this is just a mailer, but they give you like a piece of paper and say, hey, these are the artists at Columbia, MCA. These are the artists at Epic. Dave Massey at Epic is looking for. He's looking for songs for this person, this person, this person. So and so over at MCA is looking for this person. And then here at Jive, we just signed this kid, Aaron Carter. He's 12. He's related to Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys. Yada yada yada. So maybe you have some ideas for him. So that's once we got signed there, we just started working right away. So the first project they gave us, I think, was probably Aaron. I think that was the first thing, because that got us noticed in the building, because they gave us an assignment. Like, you know, he's an okay singer, but what would you guys do with him? And you know, we're thinking.
You mean Aaron Carter, right?
Yeah, Nick's brother. So we were like, he passed away sadly last November.
People don't know it's Aaron Carter, Nick's brother, the Backstreet Boys. So
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
thought I said that. My apologies.
Sorry.
Um, so Aaron was signed there right around the time we were signed there. And I remember signing our deal. Also, our attorney at the time was it was a very good place to be. So we had Steve Lunt, who was the publisher, who later on became Britney's A&R guy. And then we had Larry Rudolph as our attorney, who became Britney's manager. So Britney was already blown up in 99. We signed in 99. So she already exploded like that month we signed there. And he was like, look, the first album's done. She's exploding. The second album, we already have it kind of in the can. We recorded it while we were doing the first. That's why the second and the first are almost the same. If you read her book, she even talks about how I think it was already done. Like they did it in like 2 weeks. The rest, whatever they had to finish up.
So did you read her new book?
I have it sitting right there. I didn't read it yet. I did buy it because I love her. She was always very sweet to me. But so Aaron was the first thing. There was a couple other little things, but Aaron was the first. So we were like, okay, well, what about a young MC, Will Smith, all that shit that would have been cool in the 80s might be cool for a little 12-year-old white kid to do now. So we kind of did something like that, and we came up with Aaron's Party. We're like, what would he do? It was about a kid who threw a house party, got in trouble with his parents. We're like, that's perfect for a little tween kid. And then the thing exploded. It sold 2 million singles back into, I guess, around 2000 or 99. I can't remember exactly when it was released, right around there. And then we got noticed in the building at that point. And then they started throwing other projects at us. But I think that was the first one. Some of the other stuff that was thrown at us was like Together, which was like a movie TV show for MTV of like a fake Spinal Tap boy band kind of thing. So we did that too. And that was number one on TRL. That was hilarious. That was supposed to be a joke. And it was kind of a joke. It was like you plus me equals us, calculus. It was just crazy. They were like, whatever Spinal Tap would do if they were a boy band, we need you to do that. So we said, okay, the Bohemian Rhapsody of boy band songs. We came up with that. That's what we were thinking. But like that's kind of how it all started, was that Aaron thing, getting signed there.
And then where did it go from Aaron?
After Aaron, I'm trying to think of the order of things. Clive Calder, who was the owner of Zamba, he was an older man from South Africa. He was the nicest man. He said, I want to meet the guys who did the Aaron thing. So they bring us up to his office. And he gives us an idea, and he says, listen, I'm really good friends with Shaquille O'Neal. If you could come up with something with Aaron and Shaquille O'Neal, like in a song, and we're like sitting there like, okay, all right. We're just writing notes, like whatever this guy says, we're going to go do it. And I think we wrote it that night or that next day and submitted it. And we came up with the next single while they were still making the record, because the first single was blowing up on Nickelodeon. It was called That's How I Beat Shaq. And then that sold platinum, that song. And then the album went platinum. So after that, after we did like the kid thing, he was like, hey, listen, well, really, most of the day-to-day dealings were with Eric Beale or Steve Lunt. Steve Lunt mainly being our mentor, who I'm still friendly with to this day. He wrote She-Bop and he wrote Goonies. He wrote a lot of 80s stuff too. He was a writer, so he knew how to talk to writers. Which was so great about him being our publisher, because most publishers, they don't know how to write. They don't know anything about music, really. We're A&Rs. A lot of them are lawyers. So Steve actually was a musician and a writer. So How I Beat Shaq came out, exploded. The album came out, was number 2 in the country. It was crazy. Aaron just blew up. So the next thing they came to us with through Clive was, I'm not going to go song by song, but it was the next level for us to work with a superstar, which was Britney Spears. They're like, she needs like a Christmas song. So what would you do for Britney? And we're thinking, well, if we're going to do this, it just can't be what she does. It can't be that bang, 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 the big, like, it can't be that Swedish thing, because everybody's going to be submitting that. There's going to be freaking 80,000 writers submitting Christmas songs for Britney. So we said, all right, let's just go to the piano, shut off, everything in the room. We went and sat at the piano and we wrote it as a song, and we wrote it as like a 60s Phil Spector swing. And it ended up being My Only Wish This Year, but it went through transformations. Like we rewrote it like 4 times, 5 times. We wrote it as a sad song first, then Steve Lunt.
So your first Britney song was The
My Only
Christmas
Wish
song.
is correct. Yeah, that was written 23 years ago. This past summer was the Christmas song.
Okay.
And then they sent us to LA that summer and they said, we're going to use it. We love it. And it sounded like Phil Spector-y kind of, that was the vibe, like Darlene Love. So they sent us out to LA and that's when we met her for the first time. And from there, we developed a relationship. And that's really what that business, you realize, is what it's about. Because she just, are we the best? No. Were we the best? No. But we were funny. We were easy to work with. We're not like assholes. Brian and I were best friends since we were 16. So we were like banter. Our banter was hilarious. Britney loved being in the room with us. So she was like, on my next album, I want to hang out with these guys and write some stuff. So we developed that from recording that Christmas song. It all kind of really, the bigger stuff, I guess, in a sense, came from there. We had a couple other opportunities with Backstreet Boys as well, where we became friendly with Howie and Nick, but all developed over time. But Britney was really the first.
So sticking on to My Only Wish, is it me?
Sure, I'll
Or
digress.
does it seem like, or
I'm
does
the
it seem
king
like
of
that
digressing.
song?
Sorry, Dean.
No, great stuff. This is great. No, great, interesting. So My Only Wish, like, is it me or does it feel like that song grew in popularity?
Yeah, I have another podcaster friend of mine, and he is always sending me stats, and he's like, "Oh my God, it's in Britney's top 3. It's in Britney's top 2. It just went gold as a single. It was never released as a single. It went platinum on the album, which is over here hanging behind me right there. It's called Platinum Christmas. I don't know how many times platinum it is now, but I got that plaque back in 2001. And that's got Whitney. Britney is the lead-off song. I mean, we couldn't have been handed a cooler situation. So it was Britney, Brandy, Monica. It was Whitney. It was Joe, who just went by the name Joe. I don't know his last name. He was signed to Jive also. So, R. Kelly. I'm not supposed to talk about him anymore, but I still liked his music. He was great. What else was on that? Everybody was on that. Jars of Clay, he was even on there. So it came out on that, and the reason we wrote it was for that album. And then it came out. It was never released as a single. We thought, oh shit, what if she films a video? It'll be like All I Want for Christmas. None of that ever happened. But yeah, over the years, it became a little bit of a culty pop classic with Britney's audience. And to this day, it's the only song she ever recorded for Christmas. She never did another Christmas song. Like she never did like a Christmas album.
Yeah, it was kind of like a one-off, right?
It was a one-off, and it went gold on the 24th of October this year. I got a call, and they were like, "Hey, it's a gold single now." I was like, "Oh shit, I had no idea." Sorry, you got to edit out my curses. I apologize. Musician.
No, please. Oh no, you can listen.
I'm also a realtor, so we curse even more. You're lucky I don't have a bottle of Absolute on my desk right now.
So now, so basically, you write with Britney Spears, had a lot of fun. That resulted you into like working with her additional songs for her follow. And what was that follow-up album that she had, or what was the album that she released after My Only Wish?
Okay, so when we recorded My Only Wish, she was just releasing Stronger, which was on the second album.
Right.
So that album was already out. Max and the Swedish Sharon crew, those guys are amazing. They did, the whole album. So the third album was called Just Britney, which is it's tie-dye. The plaque is kind of really, where am I? It's up there, right there. That sold. I mean, that plaque's for 4 million, but I think since then it's sold 7 or 8 million. I don't know how many copies. That sold a lot of copies. But that album came out after 9/11. We recorded the whole thing the summer of 2001. And then it was released in November of 2001. And it was released in a different world, a totally different world than it was recorded in. Not that we were writing about what was going on in the world, but the world changed after.
Right. No, totally.
Completed to when it was released. So, I didn't expect it to. I was like, oh my God, who knows what the future of the world holds, let alone the album and everything. But we spent a lot of time together. The way that worked was she was filming a movie that was called Crossroads, and it was written by Shonda Rhimes, actually a really big film writer now. I didn't even know Shonda wrote it because I have a copy of the script sitting over there, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't realize it was Shonda Rhimes. And Tamara Davis directed it, who I think she did Fast. Did she do Fast Times or Clueless? She did one of those. But she was also I was more interested in talking to her about her husband, who was MCA from the Beastie Boys. I was like, because I'm such a big fan. But so while Britney was filming Crossroads, she had a ton of downtime. So they said, listen, Britney's never written a song before. She had mentioned you guys by name. She's like, those guys were fun. I think it would be fun to write with them, to try. So the first time Britney tried to write was in the room with us. You know, at least that was what we were told. It was the first time she really sat down and tried to be incorporated into the process of writing. So we had taken out a studio on La Brea and Sunset, way up in Hollywood there. And they just, during breaks in filming, the bodyguard would drive her to us, and we would spend a few hours in the studio. She'd be back and forth when she's needed on set. And the first couple of things we came up with, and we were just recording demos, and the demos ended up just getting used on that third album. So we must have recorded anywhere from 8 to 12 songs. And I think like 6 made the deluxe. I think 4 are on the American version, and like, you know how like the English version has like 13 or 14, but I don't know, it's prorated differently. There's like 18 songs sometimes. It's like a little different. We ended up with like 6 or 7 on the, because I know there was one I did with BT. Brian and I did actually 2 songs with BT. Brian Transo, the trance artist, they brought him in, who did pop for NSYNC. And then we did, I think that was that album. I think that was the 3rd album, because we worked on the 3rd and the 4th.
So let me ask you this. So when you're writing on this album, okay, so basically on the, you know, it's not just you writing on the album. There's a bunch of other writers. So when
just
do you
me and
find
Brian and Britney.
Huh?
Oh, on the album. I'm sorry. I thought you meant in the room. Yes, it was Brian Kurlf and myself, who was KNS.
Right.
And
but on
Britney.
the album, on the album, you have an artist writing with a bunch of different writers. Like, do you feel like, you know, you're just going in and writing with the artist, but do you feel when all said and done, there's competition among the writers, not like between you, but the other writers of, you know, having their song get released, their song get marketed?
Sure.
Like, yeah.
I mean, well, we knew that the odds of us having like the lead single were probably slim. I mean, you're competing with Max Martin, you know, the Neptunes. We were just a couple guys from New Jersey, right? So we were up and coming, but we had Rodney Jerkins was working on stuff. Yeah, Max, Rodney, Rami. I'm sure Diane Warren was submitting songs. But the thing about Clive that was interesting is he always had incentive to use Zomba writers over an outside writer for the album cuts and for some things, because he wanted to own everything. He was very smart about it. He was smart about it because he owned Zomba Publishing and he owned Jive Records. So he would use mostly Zomba stuff. So
Makes sense.
Yeah. So we, you know, and in our deal, we were only allowed to work outside of Zomba umbrella on like 3 to 4 things a year, which honestly, we ended up doing more, and nobody ever really cared. We probably went over that, but you know, listen, it's still bringing the company money. I don't think they cared, but they said we had a production deal there and we had a producer deal there. So it was both. One means like, hey, you got to give us 10 songs. We're going to give you this much money. And the publishing deal was a little different. You're not guaranteed placements, but the production deal was a little bit different, where they're paying you to produce in advance, and they're going to have you work on. I worked on Nick Cannon. I don't think that ever came out. He was young at the time. He didn't have any kids yet. Now he's got like 37. We worked on just a bunch of shit they had there, you know, other than Britney, Backstreet, and
So when you work with Britney, like at the time,
I
mean, was it like, did it feel like you were just working with a girl you went to high school with? Like, this is just a girl who I met like a million times before in high school? Or do you feel that, you know, she was a little different than any other girl who you've met previously in your life?
I can speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure Brian had the same sentiment. The first time we met her, we were sitting at the console and she walked in, we heard her voice. And I remember we looked at each other, we're like, oh God, you know, and I know we were both thinking in our heads, like, don't fuck this up. This is it. This is like a superstar in the room. We're here. We're doing this. We got her behind us. That was my only wish. But when we did the album, and we were just hanging out and ordering food and writing, there was no intimidating factor at all. She is the coolest fucking chick on the planet. She is just a sweet Southern. I mean, I can't say more nice things about her. I adore her to this day. She is. I hate seeing all the negative stuff. I feel bad for whatever's going on. I don't really get it. I don't know if it's mental illness. It's none of my business, but I really like her as a person, and she was never anything but sweet to us. Everyone around her, her management.
Well, you say you don't get it. I don't know. It's like I run social media.
Yeah.
I have my own little kind of site that I run that talks about some hot topics. But
Yeah,
one
I
thing,
love your site. I watch it all the time.
thank you. I don't really pick sides, but all I know of that girl is Britney. She gives you content to talk about.
I guess, and maybe she's a genius, or maybe it's psychosis. I don't know. I mean, I had a mother who was schizophrenic. I grew up with schizophrenia in the house. I've seen it firsthand. I'm not saying that she has. I don't know. Sometimes people are just geniuses, like Tom Waits, and you got that. He's just a crazy genius. You just don't know. Britney, though, as a human being, was so fucking sweet. Like, just you couldn't even get coffee for her. I'll get it, y'all. No problem. I'll get it myself. Don't sit. Like, just a Southern, sweet, raised. It seemed like she was raised like a nice girl. And this was the most famous person on the planet Earth you're sitting next to Michael Jackson. And she was so kind. And I just don't really ever remember. It's 20 years ago, 2001. Yeah, it was more than that. That first time we were with her. And then it just got easier and easier and easier because you became a friend, you have a rapport. And now, I remember we bought her a guitar for her birthday. Like, we got to know her. We became cool. And she was a great person. I don't know where it all went downhill. I guess it was a little bit after our time with her when that stuff with the shaved head and all that, kind of the umbrella, the famous pictures. She talks about it in her book. So if you know what, I'm going to say, if you want to know about that, maybe read her book.
Yeah, no, I like to. I mean, yeah, listen, she's
because I can't speak. I wasn't there from 2004
right, totally. Yeah, I mean, Britney. Britney has really is truly an enigma in the sense that she is. I mean, I can't think of any other kind of pop star that has been more talked about, and she's been
Michael that's about it. Yeah,
right. And Britney's been part of a lot of these defining moments in history. Like, one, she was part of that defining moment of music in general, right? I mean, it went from hard rock to serious to like pop, Britney.
Yeah, then, Tiffany, she brought back Debbie Gibson.
And then she was part of a new movement of, the whole Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears. She was part of that socialite kind of movement. So, she's been part of these interesting movements. And I see like various comments on Britney. I mean, you see people have taken now sides on her. You obviously have her father. She was in this conservatorship with her father. And people are like, right? People are like, oh, no, you're trapped. You're free. This is abuse. Where the other person is like, no, she needs that. This is for her protection.
I don't know enough to comment. I do know that. Yeah,
totally. But I'm just saying these are all the sides people have taken.
We're just chatting, but I can't tell you how many times, because I was anonymous my whole career. I tried to stay away from social media. Didn't exist really until 2010s, and at that point, our hot point of if we put anything out there was nothing in 2003, 2004. You go out, party, get stoned, go back to your car, stumbling half naked back to your hotel room in Hollywood. No one's gonna catch it. The paparazzi maybe, but now the whole fucking universe is out there with the, you know what I'm saying? That didn't happen in those days. Wherever I went to a party, it was no cameras allowed. People, if you had a camera, it was like one of the, my wallet, but it was like a flip phone. It was like a shitty camera, and you couldn't really tell.
Right.
But I mean, my time with her, Brian and I's time with her, she was very sweet. She wasn't. She was going through that whole phase where she talks about in the first couple chapters. I read a little bit when she was dating Colin Farrell. We remember her that night. She told us about it the next day. She goes, I went out on a date with Colin Farrell. I'm like, I didn't know who that was. She goes, you see Minority Report? I was like, oh, that movie's dope. I was like, which one is he? You know, she's like, the cop. I was like, oh shit, that movie was sick. So I was like, wow. Tell him I said hi. I don't know. How do I react to that? So it was during the breakup, was the fourth album, In the Zone, and we were working with her a lot in Hollywood at the time. Not as much as the third album, but that was the time when she broke up with Justin. During the third album, she was dating Justin. So we were there for all of that. We met Justin a ton of times, and he was also a very nice guy, actually. You want to not like him because he's like talented and handsome, but he's actually a really sweet guy in the room. He's like, hey, and he remembered our names. Hey, Josh. I'm like, how the hell do you know who I am? And he's like, Britney talks about you guys. I'm like, oh, wow. I'm like, this is so weird that Justin Timberlake knew who we were when he walked in the room. But we didn't get a chance to work with him or NSYNC, just Backstreet. We worked with Backstreet. But I you know, what went on after, I don't really know. I mean, I guess if a court of law saw it fit to do that, but it scared me a little bit, like just from a liberty perspective. Like, if somebody wants to be crazy and they're wealthy, that's up to them. Unless they're a danger to others or themselves, I don't see how you can. How do you give somebody's rights or take their rights essentially, and then give those rights to someone else? I don't see how. It's a terrifying slippery slope legally. But I'm not an attorney. I'm just from an American. I'm like, that's so fucked up to me that you can do that to somebody, like sort of take over their world, and now they need permission to do things. Like, if I'm crazy and I want to go through my money, I'm gonna just go do it. If I want to go, if I want to go buy 80 Labrador Retrievers, I'm gonna just.
Well, I get it. Well, and by the way, I never heard of it because like most people, this is a new concept to me. I never heard of it. Yeah. What I just gathered though is to get something like that is it has to be through probably like a court order. And I'm just using, again, I have no idea, but I'm assuming
they call it that guardianship in New Jersey, where the state takes possession of the elderly who is considered incapacitated or unable. Right, exactly. It's a guardianship. What Jersey does have, as a state, we have that, like where the state, like say you have no next of kin, that's a guardianship. I can tell you, like a person maybe who's mentally disabled, like a child with Downs whose parents maybe have grown older and they pass away, and now that child is now the state and they have to use the money, and that's a guardianship. I don't know. But what Britney went through, she's a young adult. So they would have had to convince the court of law that
she's not mentally stable.
Correct. Yeah, you would need to have a lot of evidence to support that she can't. I mean, it's
so after Britney. So you write a bunch of songs. Then what happened on her follow-up record? Were you involved in that?
Yeah, we wrote a bunch of songs it's just called Britney. I'm sorry, we did Anticipating, Lonely, Let Me Be, That's Where You Take Me, and then a few others like Before the Goodbye, and a couple of others that weren't on the American, I Run Away, that are on the English release. So I'm the king of digressing, by the way. I'm going to jump all over, Dean, so keep me.
No, because here's my question. My question is, so when did it stop? When were you like, okay, we're gonna work with Britney?
It wasn't our choice. Believe me, we would have kept going. It was when she changed management and changed, the A&R was no longer involved, and she got involved with some seedy guy in LA. So the fourth album, In the Zone, worked closely again, just like the third album. It was Steve Lunt. It was Larry Rudolph, who was the manager. Steve was the A&R. Clive was the president of Jive. I'm sorry, the owner of Jive. Barry Weiss was the president of Jive. So it was really just those four people were the only people we communicated with. They were all very great, easy people to deal with. And so the fourth album came along. It was same situation. They're like, hey, you guys want to fly back out to LA? Britney wants to start writing for the fourth album. She asked if you guys were available. I was like, yeah, let me think. Yes. So they were like, can we fly you out tomorrow night? And this is actually kind of funny. We had a flight booked, and then Larry Rudolph called and said, hey, Britney's jet is in Teterboro. If you guys want to jump on it, she's leaving in like 3 hours. If you guys want to jump on her jet with her, you can just fly with her. I was like, okay. So we run over to Teterboro Airport. It was Brian, me, Brittany, Big Rob, her bodyguard, and Q, her head of security, and the pilot. And we flew to LA together. And she's just like, y'all mind if I take a nap? So she slept, but Brian and I were just like, more like, I can't believe we're flying out here on her G4, or whatever the hell it was. So the next night in LA, we started writing for the 4th album. So the 4th album, you want me to get to where we stopped, is, after the 4th album, she had another tour. It was super successful. That was the tour with like Me Against the Music, and Madonna was on the song and all that. What else happened on that album? I'm trying to look at the record. It's hanging over there. Toxic was on it. It was a monster hit record. And she, I guess she went through a phase where she started just dating toxic people and hanging around really horrible people that were taking advantage of her, maybe. And she fired, I think she hired a different manager. And Larry Rudolph is fucking amazing. He's an amazing lawyer, an amazing manager. He was our lawyer. He was the best. He was a great guy. He was down to earth. He was easy to deal with. He wasn't a shyster. I think maybe at that age of 22, 23, maybe you just feel like you need control, and you just, because you want control so bad. Again, this is all hypothetical, but maybe you just want to take the reins so bad you're willing to do whatever it takes just to make bad decisions fast, if that makes any sense. You're just trying to like gain, feel like you have control. But in reality, you're actually dismissing all of these people that kept you stable and grounded. And because the people that were around her were good people. To this day, these are good people that weren't caught up in any nonsense, like some of the folks she was associating herself with at the time. So after that, her sound changed. She started going a little bit more, it was just different. We weren't really, Steve at that time had left Jive Records and went to Atlantic Records, who was the A&R, and he started A&Ring at Atlantic. So the A&R was gone, the manager was gone. We weren't really involved any longer, if that makes any sense. So the 5th album might have been Circus. I'm not sure what the 5th album was.
I thought it was Black. Wasn't it Blackout?
It might have been Blackout. I'm not really. Was that the one with Womanizer? I can't remember.
That was
but
one
I know
with Blackout. Okay, so your last record you did with her was
In the Zone.
In the Zone. So yeah, I'm by the way, I'm looking this up. I wouldn't know this. Like
yeah.
So Blackout. Blackout is her 5th album, and I kind of remember that Blackout is the one where people started questioning her. Like, I found the album before she's good, but when Blackout came out, she had that song called Give Me More, and she gained a little bit of weight, and YouTube started gaining popularity. And I remember once again, so when Blackout came out, there's a pivotal shift in culture. Social media ramps up, YouTube ramps up. Yeah. And I remember, and Britney Spears, I think at that time, I'm not sure she shaved her head then, but she comes out with Give Me More. Some guy comes out, I think one of his first in his kind, with a parody video of Britney, but he's doing it singing Give Me More, Give Me More. So this is when things start to unravel.
Could have been. I know that the paparazzi was harassing the hell out of her. I remember the head shaving incident. I haven't seen her since. We did, a couple other projects from that point, but not for her, for Jive, for other artists. And internationally, we had huge hits in Australia. Number 2, we had like with Gia Farrell, we had Hit Me Up, which was like number 2. Ricky Lee Coulter, we had, I think that was number 2 or 4 with a song called Can't Touch It. So we ended up doing a lot more international, because pop was changing a little bit too. So we were working on a lot more international stuff. But
so when did things lead to Gaga? When did things to working with Lady Gaga?
Okay. So we had a studio on 38th Street. It was around that time. We hired, after Britney and all that, we finally broke down, and because we were working on mostly international stuff.
And by the way, is there anything else you worked between Gaga and Britney? Any other kind of pop artist?
Yeah, the Backstreet Boys, Willa Ford. I had a big hit called I Want to Be Bad.
Okay.
which was top 20 in 2001-ish, I think, or 2000, 2001.
How was she? What was she like to work with?
Just regular girl from Ruskin, Tampa. She was a country girl. She was. I think she ended up marrying like a super famous hockey player. I
Okay.
think she's Mike Modano or something, and
Okay.
has kids now. We worked on a ton of jives. So like in the girl group they had, I can't remember the name of anything. It wasn't like huge. We worked on a ton of stuff all over because at the time, like we weren't really doing much with Britney. What else? 3LW in that time frame. 3LW was a pretty big R&B group. With they became the Cheetah Girls later. I'm looking around the room here, but Willow was a big hit for us. That was not so much she being big, but the song was top 20 in the early 2000s. I did Backstreet Boys, the third album. Brian and I wrote a song with AJ McLean called Yes I Will, which was on the Black and Blue album. That sold a lot of copies. That was around the same time in the early 2000s. So we made it down to Transcon, saw the whole Transcon operation, which is that was a shit show down there, with Lou Pearlman, the guy who was the biggest one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got to hang out and we got to meet him, which was interesting. So Gaga came from I don't know why there's balloons. Is that me?
I don't know, but that's kind of weird. I never saw balloons go up.
The fucking clown gonna come?
I mean,
my pants
unless we're some kind of haunted mansion.
My son was Pennywise yesterday too. That's what's freaky, but he's not here. So I'm glad you saw it too. And I know I'm not paid.
No.
I haven't done it. Okay.
I you know what's funny is I don't know what that was. I've never seen that in my life. And I'm like,
so awesome.
That was awesome.
I'm not on anything. For the record,
I'm looking totally behind sober. Me. I thought it was you. I mean, I have no idea how blues went up.
Super sober. So
anyway, we're gonna remember this day because you're like, there's one time I did a Zoom and just balloons went up.
And balloons. So we our management team. We hired a management team called New Heights around 2005, 6 in that range. They had a couple producers under them: Rob Fusari, Red One, us, a couple of other guys, and they were managing Gaga as an artist. They really didn't do a lot of artist management, but the reason they took over Gaga's management is because she was signed to this Team Love Child thing with Rob. She wasn't really thrilled. If you remember the news, she ended up suing him, or he sued her. He sued her, actually. I think it was the other way around. And they were dating. There was like a thing. I know there was like a thing there. You never do that. You just don't date the artist. Everybody knows that. Standard stuff. Never works out. But so Gaga was signed to Def Jam. L.A. Reid didn't really understand what they were trying to do, so he dropped it. He actually dropped her. But I don't think he would have known what to do. He's amazing at Rihanna, Usher. He does that. He does what he does. But Gaga's not. That's not for him. That's a Jimmy Iovine thing, and that's where she wound up, and that worked out really well. But during that time period when she was dropped, the management team brought her to us and said, we sat down with her and we're like, well, what do you feel? What do you want to do? Like, what do you think? And she was very, very cool. She's not Britney. She was a New Yorker. She's a little more standoffish, and a little bit more. She was a totally different type of human being than Britney Spears, in a good way. Just a different type of person, just a New Yorker. That's all I can say. So a lot, Italian girl from New York. So it's not a Southern girl from Louisiana.
Right, totally.
Like
yeah.
Hi, y'all. Oh my God, bless your heart. That was wonderful. Like, God, I love what you did. That's Britney. Gaga's like, I guess that's cool. Total slower. Lived on the Lower East Side. And she was like, okay, here's what I'm listening to. I'm listening to the Scissor Sisters. I'm listening to, whatever was big at the time. I'm listening to a lot of Blondie, this, that. So we wrote 3 songs together. I wish she had just told me she wanted to do dance music because we would have done that. But she told Brian and I she wanted to do like 1970s CBGBs, Lower East Side, Blondie. And so we did a song called Summer Boy, which was exactly that, we felt, with the disco drum beat and the guitars and the bass. It felt like the Cardigans almost meets Blondie, something like that. And that was the one that made the record. So that came out on the Fame. The other 2 songs we did, one was called Panty Party, and the other one was called Heiress, which was about like Paris Hilton and about the, being an heiress on social media and all that. Those two didn't make the record. And then they changed that years went by, like 2 years went by since we worked with her. I hadn't talked to her maybe once. And then she ended up just being a writer in LA, and she was writing for the New Kids on the Block, and she was writing for other people. And then she was signed to Jimmy Iovine through Vincent Herbert over there at Interscope through, I think it was Akon's label. She was under Akon's label. So they made the record. We found out our song Summer Boy was going to be on it. We were like, cool. And then Just Dance came out, and then poof, she exploded. And we're like, oh, thank God we got one of those on there, because that just turned into massive, massive album. And then she released The Fame Monster, which was a double album, which was a totally different album. But then she included the songs from The Fame on that, and that sold another. So I think it was a total, it was like, yeah, the plaque says 14 million albums that our song was on, because she re-released it. It was like a Happy Hanukkah Marv kind of moment, right? It was like
right, totally,
because she re-released the album with our song on it. It was prorated differently because it was a double album, of course. But so that was our experience with her. I mean, we wrote with her, maybe 10 times, maybe 9 or 10 times together. We got along really well. But when she moved out to LA and she left New York, we kind of lost touch a little bit, and she just kind of was just writing. I think she was just being a writer. That was the one conversation on the phone that I had with her. And then I hadn't talked to her since. And then, Just Dance came out, like I said, and then boom. After that, we spoke to her one time, I think, on the phone through our management. And then what was really cool, though, is The Fame was nominated for, it was nominated for Album of the Year, which we lost to Taylor Swift. But, and then we actually won. It was nominated for Album of the Year, and it was also nominated for Electronic Dance Album of the Year, and that one we actually won. So we have a Grammy for Dance Album, but we lost to Taylor for it was nominated for Album of the Year. That would have been
nice.
Kind of cool. That would have been pretty cool. So we did win a Grammy for the best dance recording album, or whatever that category was. That was done earlier in the day, the earlier in the day awards that come across the screen at the bottom. There's so many Grammy awards. So we did go that year to the 2010 Grammys, and that was kind of neat, because you're sitting there and like Ringo Starr is like, you're like, holy shit. I mean, all I could think of was my dad, who had been dead for 9 years. Like, I'm sitting here and Ringo Starr walks by and Beyonce walks by, and I'm like, who's this in the skirt? It was Kesha. I'm just like, you're just like sort of in a trance at the insanity. You go to pee and Andy Samberg is standing next to you. It's just insanity. That was the only time I ever went to the Grammys, and it was me and Brian, and we brought our artist Gio with us at the time, who was signed to us. So that was the Gaga thing. That was around 2007. We worked with her, but then it didn't come out for a couple of years. So that kept us in the business a little bit longer.
So when did he wrap it up? So when did he wrap up your full
personally?
experience in the business?
Because my former partner, is still in the business. Around 2014 is when I wrapped it up. Brian and I decided to go our separate ways as writers. And he wanted to, do his own thing. And I said, I guess I'll do my own thing, too. And I did it for a couple of months. And then I just kind of was like, you know what? I don't really have, I guess I was just turned 40. And I was just like, I don't think I have anything else to say for now. At least I felt like Forrest Gump, I think that's about that. And I said, I think I want to do something different, just to kind of just shake and just live a regular life. And the difference between Brian and I mainly was that I had 2 children, and he didn't have any yet, at the time. So I was just having a little bit of anxiety, to be completely honest, about not being home enough with my children, and that was a big part of that as well. So I decided to become a real estate investor, and kind of happened quick. It happened very quickly. I learned the business pretty quickly, and then I ended up becoming an actual realtor. Along, and I just did that for the last 10 years, and it's been something that right now it's a crazy business, but for the last 10 years it's been great. And I just kind of left the music thing behind me, and people started tracking me down, like the Free Britney movement. They tracked me down, tried to hack me. I laughed, because I'm like, I know this isn't Larry Rudolph emailing me, and the guy's like, "I'm so sorry. We just want to help Britney. Can you send?" They would say, "Hey, Josh, it's Larry. Could you send me those demos from 2000?" I'm like, "Dude, Larry would never do that. He would call me." I even texted Larry. He goes, "Are you asking me for Britney demos?" And he was like, "No." He goes, "Oh my God, let me notify her team of what's going on." So they've tried to hack me. I've gotten a lot of phone calls. People, "Are you the same Josh Schwartz?" Usually I say no. But it was easy to be anonymous in those days. Now it's tough. So now I own it. Now I put it out there on my own Facebook. I'm like, you know what? I did write those songs. And it was fun. I had a blast. I had the best writing partner. I mean, he was my best friend. So it was like, it didn't feel like it was ever a day of work when I'm hanging out with Brian all day. We're writing songs. We would, it was just fun. So I have no, there was always a bad experience here and there, but nothing that crazy. I've seen weirder shit in real estate, to be honest with you. I've met crazier people selling houses than in my 20 years in the music industry.
Like in what way? In what way?
Just people that are just, is it okay to curse on your podcast?
Sure.
I mean, people that are just not even functional as a fucking human being. Like, they're just normal, everyday guys that have jobs, but like, they're so out of sorts. Like, they just can't fathom reality. Like, their expectations of things. I've never met a superstar that was as entitled as some of these clients that I've met. And it's rare, but it's happened. And I'm just like, wow, this motherfucker's out of their mind. But I've never said that about Gaga. Like, she's crazy in an eccentric way, in an artistic. If you're an artist and you're crazy, I totally give you a pass. I just feel like, because it's kind of a part of it. Like, my craziness is I'm funny. Everybody, he's the one who never shuts up. That's my shtick. That's who I am. I own it. I'm like the funny guy. I get it. It's a part of being Jewish too. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's just like my culture.
So let me ask you this: who would you want to write? We'll wrap it up with who would you want to write with today? Who would you love to write with today? Like the new art,
I don't know if I'd have the chops, but my favorite artist right now is Zach Bryan, hands down. I mean, to sit in the room and but his music to me, it moves me. Like, I listen to a lot of pop country music. I'm that guy. I like Morgan Wallen, but I get the difference between Morgan Wallen and Zach Bryan. I love Zach Brown.
What other pop country artists do you like?
I like Carrie Underwood. My wife listens to a lot of it, so I hear it in the car with her. So I just let her put on what she wants, because I'm not the boss.
So you think Zach Bryan is the best new pop country artist?
I think absolutely, hands down, is that I like Morgan Wallen too, but when it comes to artists, if you want to hear a great song, Morgan Wallen's got his music's amazing. But it's pop. Dan and Shay, it's great, but it's like pop. But Zach Bryan takes you somewhere. I feel like Zach Bryan takes you on a little bit of a journey. Like, you're moved by what Zach Bryan is saying and singing. You really feel moved by it. Like, wow, this guy has seen some shit or felt some shit, and he's taken you there. And that, to me, is an artist. If we're talking about an artist versus a superstar, Morgan is obviously a massive, massive success. I love the one who looks like a little Shania Twain. Oh my God, super, super pretty. Casey Musgraves. I love Casey Musgraves.
Yeah.
I love her. She's another one. My favorite artist, other than that, I mean, I listen to Foy Vance nonstop. You can tell I like a lot of depressing stuff. He's an Irish sort of pop, not pop, let's call it soul. When I'm in the car, it's probably Foy Vance, Zach Bryan, Zach Brown, a lot of Zachs. I'm just trying to give you honest answers. That's what I listen to.
Also, no. So you've really delved into more like pop country.
I think my brain has. I like Churches, though. I think I like Churches is one of my favorite groups, and they're like electro pop, aren't they?
Yeah.
I feel like they're like, I love their stuff. I love their stuff. So I like everything. I think after 10 years out, I can hear something differently and not go like, who wrote this? Oh, fuck them. This song sucks. Like, I'm not like that anymore. Like, I listen to it and I go, I really like this song. I wonder who wrote it. And I listen to it like a music lover, not like an asshole songwriter that I was. Like, you think real estate's competitive, music is that, but there's like one spot and 100 writers are going for it, and it's really hard. And if like 5% of all of your productivity makes you some money, it's like, that's amazing, because you know how many songs you have to write to get to that one that makes you some money.
Yeah.
It's like real estate. You got to make 100 phone calls to get 10 appointments, to get 2 listings, to sell one of them, right? And we all know those numbers. That's how numbers work. That's the only two things I know how to do, is write a song and sell a house. And
oh, you're more talented than that.
I have some carpentry skills, but I mean, but the 2 things that I do best.
I see a microscope in the background too. So maybe
that's my daughter's. That's my
okay.
daughter's. I said, you keep it in here. It's cool looking. You can leave it in my office. But my daughter's a STEM student. But my my 10,000 hours, Malcolm Gladwell, are in real estate and in music. Way more than 10,000 in music, but in real estate, definitely 10,000 by now. And so I'm an outlier in those 2 subjects, I'd say, where I could talk about them on it. When they say, is there something you could talk about on it for hours without a script, it would be those 2 things. I just, I had a lot of fun. I appreciate being on here, and knowing you all these years, and then reconnecting with you is really kind of cool. And I remember going to your shows. I remember going to see Mr. Reality when we were younger. I'm actually friends with Gordon on Facebook, and I told him, I said, dude, you're like you're so one of the bigger reasons that I became a songwriter, because that's another thing, is seeing them, and I'm like, okay, there's a difference here. There's a song here. This is amazing. And like, it got me listening to the song as opposed to just like wanting to rock out solo and shred. Like Mr. Reality, who was just a locally famous band, right? I don't think they were nationally huge.
It's funny. I reconnected Gordon here and there, and we talk once in a while, and it's a shame because you mentioned that they were local. I mean, I know they opened up for Bon Jovi. I think but they even reformed as a band called Highway 9.
I remember that.
And but they never could get that national. They never broke out. They could never get that national.
He's doing very well right now with that girl Regan. That some of the stuff they have is fantastic. I heard it and I loved it. But he's a great guy. He's such a sweet guy. He was a great guy then, when I would meet him backstage, or when I was a kid and I had hair, and I was like, I told him, now we became friends on Facebook. I was like, dude, you are such a huge inspiration. And he was like so supportive and thankful about it. Like, he was just so kind. But I was a huge Mr. Reality fan. And so was John, so was Brian, all of us. We would all huddle up at Club Benet. I don't know, God knows what that place is now. It's probably condos. But I remember going to see them at the other place on 9, the Birch Hill. And then Club Benet, or some of the other shitholes we used to go to.
And the other 80s band that was big was American Angel.
I remember them. I don't remember being a fan, but I remember them. But Mr. Reality was like, that CD was jammed in my car and it never left. It never left my CD player, man. I think I had it on just repeat. Like, God, I was just like, these are amazing songs. And I know Danny Korchmar was like known as one of the greatest studio musicians of all time. Pretty sure he produced it. Am I wrong?
He may have. I'm not sure.
I think it might have been him. He's played on every hit in the 70s to the 80s. Like, he played on so there was heavy hands involved in that. But yeah, he was another inspiration. I forgot to mention that to this day. I actually got to tell him, which was really cool. And I just never make it out anymore because I have little kids. I'm always at soccer training or gymnastics tournaments now. It's just a different life. But I had a lot of fun, and I get the itch. But when I feel creative, I do photography. I fart around with carpentry just to get out some of the anxiety, because songwriting really helped me with my anxiety, because I had terrible anxiety growing up. So it helped. I didn't realize how much it helped until I stopped writing. So keeping busy is something that helps me with it. I'm an antsy person, as if your listeners can't already tell from this interview. I have a little
type A personality.
I guess to a degree. I'm type B with my wife, because she's the boss here. I don't fuck around. I don't want to get clipped. She's Italian. I'm Jewish. I know what happens when you piss off an Italian woman. I'm not even trying to go there. But I will say, I just, you always want to be doing something creative. So I do still write some things. I do not songs so much, but I'll write down ideas, and I'd like to write maybe some things eventually in the future, but not music, maybe more stuff for kids or something like that. Something a little different. I want to, be creative again, but in a different way. That'll be something that I do soon.
Yeah, right. Listen, we're all creative beings. It's however you want to manifest that creativity, through music, through books, through art, through paint, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Everybody's got a story in them, man. Every single human being on the planet has a story in them worth talking about, worth hearing about. And I think they even said that in a Hollywood How to Write a Script book. Everybody's got a story. So it's just a matter of, if it's personal or not, telling it, how to tell it. It's a play. Is it a poem? I've heard some poems that move me. You're like, wow, that's unbelievable. But to sum it all up, I was lucky to work with a couple of people that are still relevant to this day. Britney's still relevant. They're talking about her like crazy lately because of the book, and they re-released. The way I find out is through Facebook. People tag me all the time. Some of her fans from Europe, they're constantly, they realized I was the same Josh, and they're tagging me and telling me about Crossroads. They're tagging me and telling me about the book. So I ordered it. I'll support her. I'll check it out. I always adored her. I thought she was a great person. And I appreciate the fact that I had the opportunity to create with her, and, we had a lot of fun. She actually, in the third album, she wrote a special little thank you to Brian and I. It said, "Thank you for making me feel so comfy," like in an uncomfortable situation she'd never written before. So she actually wrote that in the liner notes, when we used to have liner notes back in those days. So that was something that was really cool. We were actually invited to her 21st birthday party, so we got to hang out with her, and Dan Aykroyd was there. That was just wild. It was just wild. Like, people were just everywhere around her, and she was just, a very, very nice girl, and surrounded by, at the time, I thought was a very supportive foundation. But she was the biggest star that I spent the most time with out of all of them. The one I felt the closest with, because we spent so much time together. I mean, we were Orlando, LA, back to Orlando, back to New York, back to, it was all, wherever she was, we would go. And we would write when it was free for her. So we would just pick up and go. As far as other artists, I can't, there's not as many as I don't have as many memories, or at least as fond of memories as I do about Britney in those days. But a lot of people feel we were the ones who got her to sing the best, because she sang on the songs. It was we had auto-tune, but it wasn't like it is now, where the computer is doing the singing. It's just a speak and spell. It's just, it's all it is now. But it was a good time, and yeah, man. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Thanks, Josh. No, that was amazing. By the way, I love your story. Very inspiring.
Sure, appreciate it. It's a lot of sadness behind it that got me there, that I didn't even go into. Just I'm an only child, no parents, no brothers, no sisters. So a lot of it was out of desperation. That, because you're gonna swing for the stands when you got nothing to lose.
It's true.
So, yeah, my parents were gone way before, and my mother was a mental case, so way before any of this. So I was kind of on my own, and we're like, well, I don't have any college, so I got to do something. So the first real money we were able to make was probably Aaron Carter, when I was about 25, and it went on from there. It's not like it was anything crazy, to accomplish, but because Aaron he was a new artist. He wasn't like famous yet. Only in like Germany, because he opened for the Backstreet Boys, there was like a lot of buzz about him as a little boy when he was real little. But when he was 12 in America, there was just nothing to lose. But let's just try something different and see what happens. And that's what started it all, at least for K&S, for us, for Brian and I. Was, I'd say, Aaron, and then a couple of other little things. But Aaron was the big one that got us noticed. I think they even played it on Hot 97 as a joke, and they're like, "Yo, new Eminem dropping," boom, and then they played Aaron.
Right.
I think they did it as a joke. Somebody told me at one of the morning shows. I thought that was awesome. I mean, because it was a Nickelodeon thing, man. It was a kid thing, you know. And then the tween market sort of happened out of there accidentally, sort of. Like you never really heard of the tween market until Aaron, you know. I don't remember hearing that phrase until that started. And there's a lot of other things that we worked on over the years. It's hard, but I can't off the top of my head think of them all. You know, lots of movies, lots of TV shows. You know, a lot of stuff for that. You know, reading scripts and writing to the script and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So what do you have planned for the day?
Today?
Yeah.
That I have some real estate business I have to handle. And then I have to go to my son has a soccer game, so I'm definitely hitting that. That's the beauty of being a realtor, is I can bring my iPad and my phone, and if something goes wrong or if I have to put a fire out, I have everything in my truck, you know, at all times. So that's probably my plan, is to go watch him kick ass in soccer. He's been killing it lately. So, but he's little.
Nice.
But he's on a travel team, so it's far. It's like an hour drive. That's my day.
Well, I'm going to pick up that book. And like I said, Josh, you've been a big, really, you know, obviously, you know, we were an inspiration for everybody. So, I mean, I think your story is very inspiring.
Appreciate it.
It's amazing. And as you said, you come from nothing. You have to swing really hard. You know, no one really had it easy in life, you know. And I'm not saying other people haven't had a better situation, but no, I agree. When the odds are against you, you have a tendency. Some people can toughen it up and swing hard. So, Josh, thanks for the conversation.
Sure.
I love reconnecting, and
bro,
we'll
anytime.
talk soon.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Give me a buzz, Dino. Anytime. You got